In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the quadratic formula, how you can memorize it, and how to use it for problems that even have imaginary numbers. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, here's our first example. We need to solve for x using the quadratic formula. That means we need to figure out what numbers go into x to make the equation true. And unlike the other ways that you might have learned how to solve these, like factoring or completing the square or graphing, the quadratic formula can be used in every case. So those other ways, you could only do it in certain cases when it worked, or it was just really tedious to do it. But in this case, the quadratic formula works every time. So what is the quadratic formula? Well, it's this nice small formula. It's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Yeah, see, nice and small. Okay, no, that's not nice and small. So how are you supposed to memorize this? Well, my advice is always to keep using formulas, and the more that you use them, the more that you'll memorize them. But this is still kind of long, so I have this really great idea for you. All you have to do is go on YouTube and search quadratic formula song. And there you go. Just listen to any one of these, and I promise you it will be seared into your brain for the rest of your life. And you'll be like 50 years old, and the quadratic formula song will appear in your brain, and you'll never get rid of it. So enjoy. And no, I will not be singing the quadratic formula song for you in this video because, copyright troubles. Yeah, I don't want to get copyright claimed. That's the real reason I'm not singing the. So anyways, how do we even use this equation? I mean, you haven't memorized, but what do these letters even mean? Well, in other kinds of problems, we've actually labeled these as A, B, and C, and we're going to do it the exact same way. So whatever number is in front of the x squared is going to be A. The number that's in front of just the regular x is going to be B, and then the number that's by itself is C. So in this case, what are A, B, and C? Well, A is the number in front of x squared. There is no number in front of x squared, but if there's no number in front, that means it's 1. So in this case, A is equal to 1. And that's the same case for B. There's no number in front of x, so it's just 1. So B is equal to 1. But C, we do have a number. So C is 2, right? No, this might be like the most common mistake I see in quadratic formula. It's not 2, it's negative 2, because the minus signs always stay with the number. So C is negative 2. All right, so all we need to do is plug in these numbers into these letters and see what we get for x. So we're going to have x equals, and now whenever we see a letter, we're going to replace it with its number. So negative, we already have a letter. We have the letter B, but we know that B is 1. So instead of B, we're going to put 1 plus or minus, and then b squared. We know that b is 1, right? So it's going to be 1 squared minus 4, a is 1, and c is negative 2. And I'm putting these in parentheses because remember, these are being multiplied together because there's no sign in between. And now it's all over 2 times a. A is 1. So now let's just go ahead and simplify this. And we're going to simplify what's in the square root first because that'll make things easier. So we're going to have negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 squared is just 1 minus, and then we have 4 times 1 times 2. Well, anything times 1 is itself, so this is literally doing nothing. And 4 times 2 is 8. But in this case, you'll see we have minus this, but we have another minus sign here. 2 negatives make a positive. So this is going to be 1 plus 8. And that's going to be over 2 times 1, which is 2. And 1 plus 8 is 9. So we're going to write this as negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 9 over 2. And now what's the square root of 9? Well, the square root of 9 is 3, because 3 times 3 is 9. So we're going to have negative 1 plus or minus 3 over 2. So now we just need to simplify this, but plus or minus, what do you do with this? Well, this is actually going to be plus and minus. So we're going to have negative 1 plus 3 and negative 1 minus 3. So let's go ahead and split this up into two equations. So we're going to have negative 1 plus 3 over 2. We're going to have negative 1 minus 3 over 2. So in this case, negative 1 plus 3, that's the same thing as saying 3 minus 1, which is 2 over 2. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. So 1 is one of our answers. Now here we have negative 1 minus 3. We lost $1 and then lost another $3. So that's minus 4 over 2. And now negative 4 over 2, 4 divided by 2 is 2. and we have one minus sign, so the minus sign carries over. So that's our second answer, -2. These are our two answers, and if you want to write it the fancy way, we'll do x equals these fancy little bracket things, 1 comma -2. So there you go. This is our final answer. X is equal to 1 and -2. And if you wanted to check your work, you can plug in 1 and -2 back into the equation and see if you get 0. All right, here's another example, and as promised, this one is going to have imaginary numbers, but you'll still do it the same way as before. So if you're feeling up to it, go ahead and pause the video, try to solve this one for yourself, and then unpause and see how you did. All right, so we're going to do this exactly the same way. We need to figure out a, b, and c. So a is going to be the one in front of x squared. So that's going to be 1 because we don't have a number in front, so you assume it's 1. So a is 1. B is the one right here, and b is +6. And c is the one right here that's by itself without an x in front of it. So that will be 10. All right, so let's go ahead and plug in these numbers into our formula and see what happens. So we have x equals -b. b is 6, so that's going to be -6. Plus or minus the square root of b squared. b is 6, so we're going to have 6 squared. Minus 4 times a is 1, and c is 10. And then that's over 2a, which is 2 times 1. All right, so let's go ahead and simplify this down. We have -6 plus or minus the square root of 6 squared is 36, because 6 times 6 is 36. And then this 1 is doing nothing because it's 4 times 1 times 10. Anything times 1 is itself. So we will get rid of this 1. 4 times 10 is 40. And then that's over 2 times 1, which is 2. Now let's go ahead and simplify this more. We're going to have -6 plus or minus, and 36 minus 40 is -4 over 2. And I'm going to go ahead and move this back up here so that we have more room. So you may be noticing a problem here, and that's because we have a negative number inside our square root, which normally means, well, you can't do that. You can't take the square root of a negative number. But you may have learned about imaginary numbers. If you're not already familiar with imaginary numbers, I do have a video on it that you can watch on the card on the screen right now. But remember that we denote imaginary numbers with the letter I, which is the square root of -1. So what we can do is we can split this up into the square root of +4 times the square root of -1, because 4 times -1 is -4. And now we have the square root of 4, which is 2, and the square root of -1, which is I, and then that's over 2. So now our last thing that we need to do is divide this top part by 2. We can get rid of the denominator, and we're going to have to divide both parts by 2. Let's just go ahead and split this up into two fractions just to show you. We're going to have -6 over 2 plus or minus 2i over 2. So -6 over 2, 6 divided by 2 is 3, and we have one minus sign, so the minus sign carries over. So we have -3 plus or minus, and then 2i over 2. Well, 2 divided by 2 is 1, and then the I stays. So we have 1i, or in this case, the 1 isn't doing anything, so we just have I. So there you go. We have -3 plus or minus I. And you actually don't really have to split this up. You could just say that this is the answer. The answer is x equals -3 plus or minus I. But basically what you're saying by this is that we have two answers. We have -3 plus I and -3 minus I. So if you wanted, you could write this as your two answers as well in these fancy bracket thingies. So yeah, our final answer is x equals -3 plus or minus I. So now you know how to use the quadratic formula, even with negative numbers and square roots and imaginary numbers and all that. And like I said, just go ahead and find a version of the quadratic formula song and you'll have it memorized in no time. But there's one more important thing about quadratic equations that you should learn, and it's graphing them as inequalities. So if you want to learn how to do that, then you can watch this video right here. And as always, if you have any questions about this, go ahead and leave a comment and I'll be sure to answer your question. Thanks for watching.